Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another video. I'm your host, Prickly Hedgehog. Now, a little bit different today in terms of a video. We are going to take a little look at a video from Cap and Grim Reapers. So this is a reaction summarization of a very interesting video which has been doing the rounds, of course, through the social media platforms and generating some discussion. Now, I did post a link to this recently, and a few of you indicated that you didn't really care for a 2-hour video, and also not everybody enjoys the Grim Reapers channel. It's just not everybody's cup of tea. Now, the shame about that, of course, is while I totally respect that, there are some really good gems in that video that I think are worth teasing out and imparting to everybody else in terms of what Eagle Dynamics is actually up to, because it is one of the few times that the company has been so candid about, the things that they're working on. Now, to go back a little bit in history here in terms of how this video came about, according to Cap, it was actually inspired by Samurai 1's video several weeks ago, excuse me. Samurai 1 actually had basically said, hey, I'm flying Falcon 4 BMS right now, and I also play DCS World, but I'm enjoying Falcon 4 BMS a little bit more because of X, Y, and Z reasons. What's up with that? What's going on with DCS World? And he got a response from the CEO, Nick Gray, about where things were headed. And he then did a follow-on video to discuss that. Now, Cap from Grim Reapers decided, I want to do something similar, but I'd rather have a one-on-one interview with somebody so I can get some direct feedback from questions from him and obviously his various viewers and followers and the team at Grim Reapers. And Simon Pearson kindly decided to step up to the plate, so to speak, and be that person. And if you're not familiar with him, I believe he's a former pilot. I believe he's a former Tornado pilot, and he is currently the team's Dynamics business development leader at Eagle Dynamics. So that's what the inspiration, or the impetus that sparked the catalyst for that particular video. But again, it's long, and I recognize that not everybody's enjoys that particular format. So let's get to it. Let's talk about the aircraft to start off with that they had mentioned in the video. Now, one of the most popular aircraft that I constantly get asked about as to why we don't have it, and when is it going to come out, and who's working on it, and we don't have it in the game, and when, of course, is the Phantom 2. And a few weeks ago, some of you pointed out to me that the Phantom was actually being made by Belsom Tech, but that Belsom Tech was largely absorbed into Eagle Dynamics to assist them with the F-18. And then as time went on, that arrangement seems to have been largely permanent. And as a result of that, the Phantom project basically appears to have stalled. So the question was asked to Pearson, was the project still viable, and will we see it in the game? The answer was yes. The likelihood, however, of seeing the aircraft in the game is somewhere between 18 and 24 months away. And the reason for this is obviously they have other projects ahead of that in the queue, unfortunately. Still, it is out there, and I think that is positive to see, because I know, like so many of you, it is a really sought after and popular aircraft. And it sounds like some of you will even saw off your own fingers if it meant you could get a Phantom tomorrow. Fortunately, you won't have to do that. You're just going to have to wait 18 to 24 months if you can, and not gnaw your fingers off. So stand by, just stand by for that. Good news. Now, as I said, there's other aircraft in the way and ahead in the queue. Of course, this includes the Hind. We saw some wonderful footage of that from WAGS recently. We've also been hinted at the Apache. WAGS mentioned that. Yes, that is a go. No idea when it's going to be complete. They are looking at an Apache AH-64, and it's going to be an A variant because the later variants, like the D, for example, are so sophisticated that essentially just probably wouldn't be supported by the software as it stands in the game. So they're also looking at a variant of the Cobra, but I'm not sure which one that is yet, but that is also slated on the production line. So frequently asked for and requested aircraft from many of you, especially amongst the Rotary Wing fan club. And in fact, Pearson was actually very supportive of that group in general. They recognized the value of these aircraft in the game, especially in multiplayer where you've got, you know, a fixed wing and multi-player group who are wanting to fly different aircraft, including the Rotary Wing ones. So it was really cool. Now, obviously, they're wrapping up the F-18, then they are starting to pour a lot more energy into the F-16, as previously discussed in other videos, as the F-18 nears completion. Hopefully that continues at a sprightly pace. There was discussion about the revival of the Hawk T.1, believe it or not, and also possibly bringing in a Hawk T.2, which I thought was also interesting news. Now, obviously, those of you familiar with Eagle Dynamics will know a couple of years ago, the team that produced the Hawk, they weren't, apparently, I think the bottom line was they just weren't making enough money to continue working with Eagle Dynamics on the project, and it kind of stalled, and they declined to hand over the source code for the model to Eagle Dynamics, which is why it's no longer in the game. It's just not supported anymore. They can't bring it in. So there is talk about, I don't know how they're going to do it, but there is talk about bringing it back. And as I said, it will help with the light fighter niche, which is also occupied right now by the L-39, which is a lovely aircraft, and the Avio jet C-101, which is also a very lovely jet. So that's good news. Now, there was a good deal of discussion about the complexity of developing more Red 4 aircraft, largely because of limitations with documentation for those aircraft. It's hampered basically by secrecy and international diplomacy issues, where essentially Russian aircraft are not available to Western powers to peruse over, outside, of course, of stolen documents and stuff like that you probably could get hold of, but you're going to run afoul of issues if you start trying to develop those things. So the bottom line was that they said they just don't have access to all of those plans and documents and other data that they need to successfully recreate the models in the game. And the good news, though, there will be a MiG-29A, apparently. I'm sure this is going to be exciting news for Red 4 fans, but there will be a MiG-29A. I don't know which variant it's going to be in terms of what it's going to be modeled on, but again, this is a really exciting piece of news. So the future looks rosy, at least for those of you also eagerly awaiting Razbam's MiG-23, the Flogger. Again, it's just going to add some variety to that Red 4 selection of aircraft. Now, let's talk about a little bit game engine in general. They do want to make destructible environments. Everything, all the objects in the game need to be destructible, so it can bolster the realism, which is lacking right now. I know that some things don't blow up, some things are basically immovable and indestructible, and they want to rectify that to, again, increase the immersion and realism in the game, and which is cool. There was a comment that came up about weapons like Napalm, which has been discussed, but it was argued it was incredibly complex to mimic because of the fluid dynamics. They have looked at it, and it may still come to fruition at some stage, but right now it's not something that they're working on. Along with people bring up the nuclear weapon option. Again, the argument was simply it's not plausible in the game, and it's not realistic. So, as much as we would like to, obliterate the map sometimes. So again, in relation to the game engine, we've talked about this in the past in other videos too. Sort of mid-2021, we're looking here at game engine improvements. Again, we've talked about this, but ways to increase the frame rate under the sort of modern architecture and hardware that's available. Essentially, we're talking here better access to multi-core processing systems so that the game can perform a little bit better. There was quite a heated, not heated, but a kind of intense discussion about, the state of modern computers and the difficulty with so many people owning, varying types, some very, very advanced and others pretty mediocre, and then within 5 years your rig's pretty much, paperweight. So all these things, were kind of thrashed out a little bit, and the hope generally is that we're going to see improved frame rates, bottom line, by sometime mid next year, which is good. Now, the mission editor is due for an overhaul. They're also going to see, we're going to see some updates at least to the supercarrier in Q3. I've mentioned the Syria map many times. I thought it was going to be released later this month, but in fact that was just a guess because we talked about late summer. But in fact it looks more like it's going to be late September, early October, so stand by for that. They're still working on testing. Not all of it has been modeled. There's areas on the map that haven't been. So, you know, again, it's going to be a nice map, but yeah, we've got another month or two here before it's going to be absolutely certain to be in the game. Now, one of the other things that came up was a lot of you in one of my other videos complained about the fact that there was going to be yet another module purchase needed if you want to get the full Monty version of the A10C, which the in-game version would be the A10C2. And I believe this was a result of some specific requests from their military partners. And Simon basically, he talked a lot about the fact that they do get regular, constant requests from militaries around the world looking to model certain things, whether it's objects in the game or pieces of equipment, whatever else. And not all of the stuff that they can talk about, but they obviously have close association with numerous militaries around the world, obviously, and probably affiliates looking to have things modeled in the game for training purposes, which bodes well really for the game, because while there is the looming threat of the release of Microsoft 2020, we occupy different niches in the market, and I think that was readily identified when the questions came up about modeling larger aircraft in the game, like the Hercules and C-17, those kinds of things. Basically, that was not what Eagle Dynamics wants to focus on. They felt that long-haul flights on various pieces of cargo aircraft and stuff like that the military obviously do perform to move equipment around, this was better served by different games. It's not something that they really wanted to get into. They're focused primarily on combat-style aircraft by and large. So, could that change in the future? Who knows? But the short answer was that right now that's not a focus. Okay, so those are the gems that I felt were worth kind of mentioning. Again, some of this has previously been discussed, so some of this won't be news to you. But, like I said, the gems such as the Phantom and the MiG-29, and things also like the Destructible environment, and minor changes perhaps to the supercarrier, these are critical improvements. And as we wrap up here too, I think one other mention was clouds. They don't have a dynamic weather. They did talk about a dynamic campaign, but this was basically they found out to do a dynamic campaign has been proven to be much more complicated than what they realized in terms of the coding requirements. So, triggering events and all that kind of stuff, and all sorts of considerations meant that that's taken a lot longer than what they initially thought it would. So there's a lot of things going on in the background that, again, we are aware of this in broader terms, but it was nice to kind of hear it from, I guess, the horse's mouth, so to speak. And it was nice for them to be relatively candid about some of the things that they're working on, and the relationship that they have with the community, in terms of complaints with regards to bug squashing and fixes and stuff like that they are working on. So overall, I'd say it was a positive video, even though it was a long one. So before this gets any longer, I think we'll wrap it up. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought, and post in the comments below. That'll do for now. Stay tuned for another video for later this week, and I am in discussion with a third-party developer too. Just some very tentative, reaching out. So I hope to have you with more news about that in the future. Stay tuned, so to speak. Stay tuned. Alright, that's enough waffle. Thanks guys, this is Brickley Hedgehog out. We'll see you next time. Carry on flying, and of course, stay safe out there.